Okay, class, today our chapter is chapter 6, analyzing the audience. I really want to emphasize to you as a speaker that you must be audience centered. At every step of the speech, in every part of your preparation and presentation, you must have the audience foremost in mind. It's very important if you're going to get them to listen and understand or even comply with your request. But it's also important to keep you from being nervous about your speech. Well, how do you do that? You might ask. Well, you do ask some questions. You ask, to whom am I speaking? Who is this audience? In our case, it will be a group of 18 to 25-year-olds for the most part. What do I want them to know, or to believe, or to do, or to believe and do? What action do I want them to take? That's very important for you to ask. And then, what is the most effective way of composing and presenting my speech? I will be giving you several ways to organize your speeches. You will choose one that will best fit your audience. And you'll understand that when we begin covering that later. Now, I want you to know that effective speakers create a bond with the audience. We call that bond identification. You identify with the audience somewhere in your introduction, usually in your credibility statement. You tell them that we have common goals, we have common values, and you stress common experiences. In other words, you establish a common place between you and the audience. People like people who are like them. And so, a good speaker establishes a common place with his audience. And this is being audience centered. So you think about their background. You think about their interest, their level of knowledge about your topic. You think about their attitude toward you, the speaker, toward the topic, toward the occasion. We'll talk about that a little later. And I really do want to stress that your classmates are not an artificial audience. They are a real audience. They have real needs and real interests, and you must discover those and move your speech toward their interests to be an effective speaker in this classroom. Now, we want to spend a little time talking about the psychology of the audience. Psychology of audience. There is an audience psychology. You need to understand that audiences, people in general, are egocentric. That means they just have a tendency to be concerned about their own values, their own beliefs, and their own well-being. You need to get a grasp of what your audiences know, what they believe, what they care about, and understand that they understand things in terms of their own experience. You must understand their experience to be an effective speaker. Now, egocentrism is not the same as being egotistical. That's just saying I'm the greatest. But we all of us, are concerned about our values, our beliefs, and what we care about. So the question is, how do we understand their experience? Well, first of all, you do a demographic audience analysis. What that means is simply this. We think about the age of the group, the gender, the religion, the sexual orientation, group membership, racial, ethnic, and cultural background. And so, when you analyze the audience, the very first thing you want to avoid is stereotyping. And that's simply an oversimplified image about a particular group. It's assuming that all the members of a particular group are alike, when they most certainly are not. So let's talk about age. People who are in the 18 to 25 range have a different set of needs and values and goals and beliefs than people who are in, let's say, the 50 to 60-year-old range. You need to discover those. That information is readily available, and you can research that. And then let's think about gender. Men and women are quite different in what they care about and what they're concerned about. Is your audience predominantly women or predominantly men? Is there a mix? You need to understand that. Women, for example, in the area of politics, it has been discovered, are concerned about education and health care and social justice. Men, on the other hand, are concerned about economics and national security. Well, you need to keep those things in mind. And of course, there are different views between men and women on different topics. All of that information must be discovered by you, the speaker, when you're analyzing the audience. So let's move on. Besides the age and gender, there are religious views, and obviously they differ. You've got to be very careful here and be very considerate here when you're speaking to groups with different religious views. You need to know what their views are so you don't step on a landmine when you're speaking. Sexual orientation. Today, a speaker, for example, might say, well, we want to thank you and your partners. Well, he's being inclusive today because he realizes everybody is not in a traditional marriage relationship. You need to do the same. Then there are racial, ethnic, cultural backgrounds. There are different customs for different cultures, different ethnic groups and beliefs. Understand those customs. Don't step on one of those customs or offend somebody by promoting a custom that is against their particular custom. And then there's group membership. People in the United States belong to groups, many different types of groups. We're grouped together by occupation, by economic position, by social standing, by education, by intelligence, even by our place of residence. Any common characteristics group people together. So be aware of those common characteristics when you are speaking. Now, let's talk about situational audience analysis. There are very many factors about the situation of giving a speech. The size is one factor. When you're in a larger group, you'll speak in a much more formal manner. Obviously, the opposite would be true in a smaller group. And then there's the factor of the physical setting itself. Are you speaking to a group of people who have just finished lunch? Is it too hot or too cold in the room? Is it early morning or late in the afternoon when you're speaking to people? Is a room very crowded? Are people cramped? Or is it open and airy? The key here is that if you're very energetic and excited about your topic, often an audience will forget their discomfort. Now, let's look at the disposition that audiences have in giving a speech. And this is something very important for you to consider. They'll have a disposition toward your topic. You need to assess their interest in your topic in advance. If they're not interested, and you know that, and you should find that out before you speak to any given group, then you might have to have an arresting introduction, something that snags their attention. A quote, a story, and there are other ways to arrest attention. You want to have strong supporting material, good evidence that backs up your conclusions that you're trying to convince the audience to believe. And then, of course, strong, vivid, descriptive language will capture their minds. And you'll hear me say this many times. A great speaker creates mind movies in the listener. And you want to do that. Too many times I've heard many student speeches that are just filled with dead, gray word gravel. They're about as exciting as cold cornmeal mush. Gotta have vivid, descriptive language. And then you want a dynamic and a strong and a powerful delivery. You want to believe what you're talking about. All of those things will help you create interest in your topic. So you need to understand that visual aids also great tool to create interest. And then what is the knowledge of the people about your particular topic? People love things they're familiar with. Are they familiar with your topic? Choose a topic that they're somewhat familiar with, and you can give them more information. You can enlighten them about this particular topic. And then what is their attitude toward your topic? What are they concerned about when it comes to your topic? What are the objections they might come up with concerning your topic? You need to anticipate those objections and provide good, solid, supporting material to answer those objections in advance when you're preparing your speech. So that's the disposition toward the topic. What about the disposition toward the speaker? The more they perceive that you are competent, the more likely they are to accept your particular view. Competence comes from your knowledge, from your experience. Your knowledge comes from your research. Do your homework and research well, and you'll have a much greater chance of having your ideas accepted by an audience. And then what about the disposition toward the occasion? Well, audiences have very distinct ideas about what should be done at any particular occasion, what should be done at a graduation, what should be done at a funeral. Many other examples could be stated. Well, how do we get information about the audience? Well, the best way to do it is through a questionnaire. I will ask you to prepare a questionnaire when we do our persuasive speech, not the informative. You'll ask 3 types of questions. There will be fixed alternative questions, and this is just a fixed choice between 2 or more alternatives. For example, are you in favor of offshore drilling? Yes, no, not sure. That's just a fixed alternative question. You can ask a question like that to get the audience's opinion on your topic. Scale questions are responses at fixed intervals. For example, you might say, you might make a statement, I approve of offshore drilling, and ask the audience to respond. They could respond strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And then you can get the attitudes of the audience toward your particular topic. And then you can ask open-ended questions, and this is simply where they answer any way they want to. What is your opinion about offshore drilling? You will need to do this for your persuasive speech. And this is all related to the disposition for the particular equation. Now, let's talk about adapting to the audience. Remember, this chapter is about being audience-centered. Before the speech, you ask yourself, how will the audience respond to this topic? What do I need to anticipate? What do they feel? What do they believe? What are their values? And so you ask those questions before the speech and you prepare accordingly. Then during the speech, you watch for feedback. If someone is frowning or several people are giving you a quizzical look, back up. Restate your point in different terms until you see visibly through their feedback that they're getting what you're saying. So let's summarize this topic of analyzing the audience. Great speakers are audience-centered. They realize the psychology of an audience, that they're egocentric. They're concerned about their values, their beliefs, and what their experiences. And then you need to identify demographic traits of the audience: age, gender, religion, racial, ethnic, cultural backgrounds, those types of things. And then you need to assess the disposition of the audience. What is their disposition toward your topic, favorable or unfavorable? What about you, the speaker? Do they see you as competent? Well, you need to tell them that you've done research and you're well informed about this topic. And what about the occasion? What's the physical setting? Or not only that, but what is the occasion that you're speaking? As I said before, maybe a graduation, maybe a funeral. And then Get information about the audience. Use questionnaires if you're speaking for a company or a certain group of people, corporations. You would call people who are in charge of inviting you to come and speak, and you would ask them, what are the values of these people? What do they think? If you have a chance to pass a questionnaire out to some people, that would be very, very helpful. Anticipate objections and then adjust to audience feedback as you see it, as you're speaking. You need to be audience centered, audience focused. And if you will do that, you will be or have a great start to becoming a great speaker.